everybody, I'm Jessie Coffield, and it's Monday. That's the not so great news. The good news is that 1 hour of DFS and sports betting advice is on the way, aka The Sweat, and we're getting the party started with our NFL panel. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, and RotoWire's AJ Scholes. Fellas, it's time for NFL Hangover. Overreacting. We love to overreact to some of the biggest storylines from Week 4 Sunday slate. And guys, where is Kenny Ducey when you need him? How about Zach Wilson? He leads the way for the Jets as they upset the Titans in OT to get their first win of the season and his first career win. So Jeff, things looked gloomy last week after the Jets dropped to 3-0, or 0-3 rather, but did Wilson show enough on Sunday that you think the Jets can turn it around?
No, look, it's a nice story. It's a great win. It was a fun game. This win by the Jets really says more about the Titans than it says about anything about the Jets. This Titans defense, I had hopes that, they'd be able to turn things around a little bit. They signed some nice players in the secondary, Janoris Jenkins, but it's the same story. This defense can't stop a cold. It can't stop anything. It's letting Zach Wilson go for over 9 yards per attempt, have his best completion percentage in the NFL. Look, it was a nice game. Zach Wilson's got some big play potential. I'm not trying to talk down to him, but we've seen what this Jets team has been against legit defenses, and Tennessee isn't that, man. This is the same story with Tennessee. They let teams in. They let teams score. And, yeah, they got Julio and A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry to bail them out most times, but they didn't have those guys, and they couldn't bail themselves out. And it really makes you question whether Tennessee, if they don't get these guys, team could crater. So, nice game by Wilson. I don't think the Jets are turning anything around, and I have serious concerns about Tennessee right now.
All right, Pierce, do you think this says more about Tennessee than it does about the Jets?
I worked with Kenny yesterday, and he was unusually quiet with the Yankee sweat and the Jet sweat. He ended up pretty happy on the day. I don't think this isn't going to tell us anything about the Jets. They can't win this division. The division belongs to the Bills. There's better contenders in the AFC that are going to win the wild card. Wilson is going to have some good games. Corey Davis is going to have some good games, but otherwise, it's really just nothing to even think about.
All right, AJ, what's your take on this?
I'm with both of these guys here. I don't think anything's really changed. One game does not a season make. Jets still have the fourth fewest rushing yards in the league. Wilson remains tied for the league lead in interception. I do think they have a nice matchup next week against the Falcons. That could see them maybe start to build something a little bit heading into their Week 6 bye, but that could also be the only 2 games they win this season. Jeff's absolutely right. They're not winning the division. Wild card's going to be nearly impossible for them to track down. So maybe some good things to think about as you head into the bye week if they've won 2 in a row, but that's probably going to be about the highlight of the season.
All right, the other New York team also got out from under an 0-3 hole as the G-Men used OT as well to pick up their first win of the season. A 27-21 victory in the Saints' return to the Superdome. So Daniel Jones threw for over 400 yards in the win, but the biggest storyline may be a 2-touchdown, 126 total yard effort from Saquon Barkley. So Pierce, is Saquon back, and are the Giants better than we think? Pierce appears to be frozen. AJ, what do we think?
Oh, it's not my fault.
I was afraid there too.
Go ahead, AJ. We got you.
All right. So yeah, everything on this team from my standpoint is tied to Barkley. Daniel Jones, quality game, but I think it comes down to the Giants being able to establish the run here. Look, I'll make this prediction right now. Giants won't win a single game this season in which Barkley fails to score a touchdown. He needs to be the key factor here for them to win. I think that'll be tricky heading into their next matchup with Dallas. And I think if they do win, or if he can put up some numbers in that game, then maybe I'll start to believe. But right now, I think it's a little too soon to be overly optimistic about the Giants after this game.
All right, Pierce, I think that was just a little Zoom issue. I think we have you back. So what do you think? Is Saquon back, or are the Giants better than we think?
Yeah, those are my exact words from Friday. I've been pumping the Giants for the last couple weeks. I think there's big things on the horizon. And even Jeff, he went all in on the Sunday show for Daniel Jones. I unfortunately went Galaxy Brain and recommended Cullen Johnson, who I don't even think got on the field on Sunday. But otherwise, Giants look good, and they're using Saquon Barkley in a lot of different ways. They lined him up as a wideout yesterday, and they basically just hit him on a deep fade. You like to see Jason Garrett using different play calling maneuvers. Barkley is probably not a grinded out workhorse back, but he's very explosive, and he could have a pretty good games in this lineup as it expands.
All right, Jeff, what do we think?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the musical chair as a wide receiver was pretty hard to predict for the Giants last week. But I think this is a Daniel Jones story. I'm actually, I don't want to say I'm all in, but I'm convinced that Daniel Jones has turned a bit of a corner here. You look at his completion rate the last 3 weeks, over 68%, over 10 yards per attempt against the Saints defense. This is one of the most elite defenses in the league in terms of passing. We're allowing under 6 yards per attempt before this game. Daniel Jones made them look ridiculous. Marshawn Lattimore out there, Kevin Galladay, who cares? Daniel Jones was firing him the ball. He's got 1 interception on the year. The turnovers are down. Everything else looks great. The problem with the Giants is they started 0-3 and they did Giants things to start the year. So they're in this big hole. But from a team perspective, with Saquon back, they are playing good. Maybe this is the second half story and they really get on a roll. I do think this team has some potential down the road. And I really, really like the way Daniel Jones is playing. A little bit of an underrated story right now.
Well, after a humiliating effort last week against the Browns and mystery all week about who would be under center in Chicago, the Bears managed to beat the Detroit Lions with Justin Fields at quarterback. So no touchdown passes for Fields, but he did lead 4 scoring drives. So was last week a blip? Was this week more about playing the Lions, or is the truth somewhere in the middle, AJ?
Oh, it's 100% this was about playing the Lions. It always is in the NFC North. Look, I'll admit the Bears defense did look decent in this one, but I don't think any team that beats the Lions this year should feel overly confident about turning their season around or having a good year. It won't be another 0-16 season. I'm not predicting that, but it's not going to be much better. So, give the Bears credit. They played decently. Justin Fields did have a solid game, but I wouldn't get too hyped here either because you are playing the Lions, and that's unfortunately just the nature of going up against Detroit.
Jeff, do you agree?
I'm gonna do something that I don't normally do. Give Matt Nagy a little credit. He is very good at beating up on these weaker teams. And look, he's gotten the Bears to the playoffs twice because he doesn't lose these games. His game plan around playing the Lions is play slow, don't make mistakes, beat them where they're weak against the run, pound David Montgomery, keep the mistakes to Justin Field limited because he's only going to throw 17 times, and make some pretty good game plans around the short passing game. He did all that last week, and they hit on a couple big plays, and look, they beat the Lions. Great. But they're very good at doing that, and yeah, you have to give Matt Nagy a little bit of credit because if they win those games, they give themselves a chance. The problem is when they play the Clevelands of the world, that game plan goes out the window because it doesn't work. You can't bully teams like Cleveland around, and Matt Nagy doesn't know how to get his quarterbacks like Justin Fields the most out of them. So will you see this team regress when they play a good team again? Yeah, probably. It was an okay game for Justin Fields. Good passes, like yards per attempt and everything like that. He only threw the ball 17 times, but at least you like to see that. The real test will come when they play a good team again, and I'm not convinced you're going to see anything different than what happened the last time when they played Cleveland.
Pierce, do you want to give Matt Nagy a little credit here?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't at all. They beat a team that's not very good, and against a good team, as these guys mentioned, the Browns, they struggled last week. On Sunday, Kirk Cousins struggled against the Browns as well. I'm sure Jeff loved every minute of that. But the biggest takeaway for me with Fields is he's not going to be the dual threat quarterback that we're expecting. Maybe he could be, but it looks like he's more of the deep passer that Jeff kind of alluded to the last couple of weeks. And we could see some big plays, but other than that, I don't think he should be anywhere near our fantasy radar unless he proves that he's going to run the ball on the ground and that they can beat average teams, which I don't think they've answered any of those questions.
Okay, well, Jeff, there are only 2 undefeated teams remaining in the NFL, okay? One plays tonight when the Raiders play the Chargers. We're going to get to that game later on in the show. But the Arizona Cardinals became the first 4-0 team this season thanks to an impressive offensive performance by Kyler Murray and company in LA against the Rams. The Cards scored 37 points, so now they've scored at least 31 in every game this season. Last week we said the Rams were the team to beat in the NFL after their win over the Bucs, but after watching Arizona this weekend, Jeff, do they deserve that superlative now?
Obviously I gave the Rams a ton of superlatives last week after they had that big win. I'm going to try just dial it back a little bit this time. The Cardinals are playing fantastic football. They've somehow managed to put AJ Green back in the DeLorean, AJ Green back, which is amazing because now you have almost two DeAndre Hopkins, if that makes any sense, or maybe two AJ Greens. I don't know. You've got two elite wide receivers there now, and then you've got this guy Rondale Moore. You've got Chase Edmonds working. Everything is working right now for the Arizona Cardinals. And when Kyler Murray came out of college, we all said this guy could be the most elite dual threat purpose weapon, quarterback, whatever that we've ever seen. It took a couple years, but he's there. So Arizona right now is a very dangerous team. I would still say pump the brakes a little bit. There's teams out there, Tampa Bay. Green Bay is starting to get their legs under them. I would say that Arizona absolutely deserves to be in the conversation for top three teams. I would probably take one of those veteran teams, mainly Green Bay, over them right now. Again, I think everyone's jumping on the hype train. That's fine. Let's see. Can Kyler stay healthy into week 15, week 16? Because if he can't, this team could come unraveled quicker than people think.
Pierce, choo-choo, are you jumping aboard the hype train or not? What up?
Yeah, we might as well. We jumped on the Rams hype train last week and we bailed off quickly. Now we're jumping on the Cardinals hype train. It looks good again. Murray, if he's healthy. I mean, last year when he was healthy, he was great. When he got banged up, they fell apart. If he can stay healthy, awesome. AJ Green, for the first time in his career, is not having to deal with number one cornerbacks or double coverage. He's getting the secondary defenders and the weaker defenders, and he's having some big games. And then you look and say, well, who's going to cover Christian Kirk? Who's going to cover Rondale Moore? They're going to be open. You've got two running backs that are great complementary running backs, a genius coach, and a defense that's starting to gel. The only problem is we said the exact same thing last week with the Rams, and we changed our tune. But hey, let's enjoy it now. Let's ride the hype train.
All right, AJ, are you all aboard?
I'm not all aboard. I agree with Jeff. They're in the conversation. They're in the mix. But yeah, to Jeff's point, there's a ton of veteran teams out there. And betting against Brady at this point is ill-advised. So the Bucs are obviously in that mix as well. But I do think Arizona is having a fantastic start to the year. 13 total TDs on offense with a fairly even distribution between running and passing. And then a quarterback in Murray, who I do think over the last few weeks is kind of flying under the radar. We've been talking about Tom Brady and the return and Matthew Stafford's big numbers, Derek Carr as well. But it's actually Murray who's sitting second in the league in passing yards right now. He's first in yards per attempt at 9, and he's first in completion percentage at 76.1. So he's off to a good start. I think Jeff brings up a good point about health. Can he stay healthy and continue to hold the line on these numbers? But they're absolutely in the conversation right now.
Okay, and perhaps the most anticipated game of this last Sunday, Tom Brady got the win in his return to Foxborough, but Belichick and the Patriots did keep it close. Mac Jones almost led a game-winning drive, but it wasn't meant to be for New England. The Patriots are now 1-3. Is that too big of a hole to climb out of this season, Pierce?
Yeah, it is. Well, they can have a good season, but it's the same as the Jets. The Patriots are in a tough division. I know it's early to give the division to the Bills, but wow, do they look really good. I just can't see a universe where the Patriots win this division. And then you've got a tough AFC North that's probably going to have some wild card players. You've got the AFC West. It's just going to be a tough spot for them to, I guess it is. It's a hole too big to climb out of.
All right. What do we think, AJ? Too big of a hole to climb out of?
Yeah, I'm with Pierce here, exactly. And I had the same thoughts on this, that it's not so much that they can't have a good season. They could maybe 9-8, 8-9, somewhere in there, and have an okay year. But the Bills, to his point, they've got a 2-game lead. I know it's early in the season, but they have looked really dominant. That they're not going to have a lot of leeway here. You look at the wild card spots; all those currently being filled by 3-1 teams. So they would have to be really good every week. They have to beat they can't have any blips against teams that they're supposed to lose. And honestly, their best hope might be betting on the Bills to fall apart and them winning the division, because I don't know that a wild card spot's really in play. And again, I'm with Pierce. I don't see the Bills dropping off here. So I just think the rest of the AFC is too good for them to be able to climb out of this hole.
Jeff, what do we think?
I'll play devil's advocate a little bit. They still have 2 games against the Bills. Look, the Patriots should be 3-1 right now. I mean, I'm sorry, but losses. Let's get some aggressive play calling back. Why aren't you going for it on 4th and short, Bill Belichick, anymore? Easily could have taken that Tampa Bay game. Same thing late in the game against Miami. They just pulled their foot off the gas pedal. this team has been in 3 of the 4 games, and 2 of them been against very solid teams. So I like the way the Patriots are playing. They've got some nice tools. Mac Jones, dual Tom Brady, if we're being honest. I think the pieces are there, but they've got to start finishing off these games and a little bit more aggressive play calling. If they do that towards the end of the year, they'll probably be in some games, maybe even a couple against the Bills. So I think there's a chance for them to get in the wild card race. I'm not betting on it, but I definitely think this team is playing better than their record. So I'll give them a shot.
Jeff's saying there's a chance. All right, that'll do it for NFL hangovers. I think we're all feeling that today. We're going to take a quick break here, then we'll look at some bets for the MLB playoffs with our baseball panel. We'll be right back. It's officially playoff time in MLB. Here to take a look at some enticing bets are DraftKings contributor Matt Meiselman and RotoWire's Eric Halterman. All right, let's start with the 2 wildcard games. First up, Red Sox hosting the rival Yankees. New York is actually a -120 road favorite in this one. Who comes out on top, Matt?
This is a really close to 50-50 game. So I think if there is value on this one, it's with Boston. Like, I might slightly lean towards them. I think the home field advantage kind of negates the fact that Garrett Cole is a much better pitcher than Nathan Eovaldi. But the Red Sox have also seen Cole a bunch this year. They've had decent success against him. And it's not so much that I care about the results that they've had against him. It's just the fact that they've seen him a lot. And anytime you're very familiar with the same pitcher, it just helps a little bit. But at the same time, the Yankees have also seen Eovaldi a lot. So I kind of think this could be a higher scoring game than people are expecting. I think it should be a close game. But I don't have a strong feeling here. So I think I'm reluctantly picking Boston, but it's not one of my strongest takes.
Eric, do you have a strong feeling either way?
Well, let's start off all wishy-washy. I think that's a great way to start a segment. I'm actually going to do that too. I'm basically in the same place here as Matt. This is effectively a coin flip. I think if you look at the Fangraphs playoff odds, we're talking 50.2% to the Red Sox. So that's as good of a coin as you're ever going to get in a baseball game. I think I would agree that Cole gives the Yankees a slight edge, but he hasn't even been Garrett Cole necessarily down the stretch. His last 4 starts, a 6.15 ERA. The peripherals are better than that, but even xFIP, which is one of the more kind ERA estimators to him over that last stretch, still has him at 4.19. So this isn't necessarily vintage Garrett Cole, at least for his last few starts. And Nathan Eovaldi has really been quite good this year. He actually beats Garrett Cole in FIP this season. So it's actually a smaller gap, I think, in the pitchers than you might think. So given that the Red Sox have slightly better odds, they're probably the one I would pick. Although if it were even, maybe I'd go Yankees 52% chance.
All right, over in the NL, the Dodgers host the Cardinals and are minus 220 on the money line. The Dodgers were the favorite before the season to win the World Series, Eric. So can they make it through this wild card game?
I would absolutely pick the Dodgers here, and I absolutely would not pick them at the odds that they have. That's just way too much of a favorite for a game between two good teams that will be going all out to win. Single elimination games in baseball are always much closer to 50-50 than we intuitively think they maybe should be. And I just don't think I can get behind any team really at more than minus 200 in a single game. The Dodgers are the best team in the league, and the Cardinals may not even be a top 10 team. I think this is about as wide a gap as you can get in a wild card game. But still, I would prefer the Cardinals at the odds we get them, especially because if we assume it's going to be Max Scherzer on the mound for the Dodgers, he's been shaky in his last 2 starts, 5 earned runs in both of them. It was also his 2 lowest velocity starts since April. So if this isn't quite Max Scherzer and it's only 90% of Max Scherzer, I think that's enough to make this even more, again, close to a coin flip. Definitely would take the Dodgers if you're talking just who's more likely to win, but not at this kind of odds.
Matt, do you like the Dodgers to pull through here?
Yeah, and I think to Eric's point a little bit, Scherzer has been shaky lately, and I also think that there's this Cardinals bandwagon that's kind of formed over the last month, and once we have a few more days of betting splits here where we've taken in more action, we're going to see, my guess is that most people, or at least somewhere around 50%, are actually going to be on the Cardinals side of this game because they're going to see the odds, they're going to see this as a team that's on the rise, with Scherzer struggling lately. And I think that the average bettor will be like, why is this line so large? The Cardinals are a good team. But the Cardinals are really not that good of a team. Their winning streak is one of the greater anomalies in recent history. Like, this is a team that struggled all year long. They don't have a great lineup, and they have their problems against righties. Scherzer has a huge platoon split. There really isn't a left-handed bat in the Cardinals lineup to give him trouble. So I am a little worried about the last 2 starts, but ultimately I do want to go with the Dodgers. The only caveat I'll give, though, is that Max Muncy is not going to be available for this game, and that is a huge deal. He got hurt, I think it was on the last day of the season. Clayton Kershaw also got hurt in his last start, and that won't affect this game, but it will affect the Dodgers' future World Series hopes. But not having Muncy will make this game a little bit closer, so I'd be willing to lay the 2-to-1 odds or so on the Dodgers if Muncy were playing. But maybe not without him there. But I still don't want to take the Cardinals, that's for sure.
Well, despite having to play in the wild card round, LA is still the favorite to win the NL at plus 205. So, Matt, are there better options on the board here?
Yeah, I almost want to say it as though there are less bad options. Like, I think the odds are really fair for most of these teams. The team I'm kind of leaning towards is the Braves at plus 450. I think even at 10-to-1, the Cardinals just are not, that's not a value. I think the Dodgers odds don't make that much sense either, especially with what I was saying with Muncy and Kershaw not being healthy. But with Devin Williams, who's a high leverage reliever for the Brewers, that actually matters a lot. He got injured late in the season with kind of a strange injury, breaking his hand. That helps the Braves. And it's just an incredible story with Atlanta. Like, they lost Ronald Acuna, they lost Marcell Ozuna, Mike Soroka. Acuna in particular, of course, is the main loss there. And then they went out at the deadline and acquired a bunch of hitters to kind of make up the gap. So I don't know if plus 450 is still a great value on them, but I do think they have a good chance to beat Milwaukee. And then they may not have to face the Dodgers. The Dodgers could lose to the Cardinals in this one game kind of just toss up. I mean, it's not really a toss up, but the Dodgers could lose, and they could lose to the Giants. And I don't think the Giants are that great. So if there's a team I would take there, it's probably Atlanta.
Eric, LA's odds have actually moved to plus 210. So what do we think?
I think that's just crazy. I don't think you can say a team is favored when they only have maybe a 60% chance, in my eyes, to even make the playoffs proper. If there's a 40% chance that they're not even playing by the end of the week, I just don't think they can be favored. Maybe we'll circle back to them after they've won the wild card, and I do think they probably are the most talented team in the NL, even with those injuries that Matt mentioned. But standing today, I can't call them favorites. I'm with Matt, I think, on Atlanta being the best odds. 5-game series are, not a whole lot less of a coin flip than single games are. It's just not a surprise if a good team loses 3 out of 5 over the course of a 162-game season. Shouldn't be a surprise if it happens now. And so the Braves having just better odds than most of the other division winners, they stand out to me. The Brewers also, though, stand out because they get to play the Braves. I think the Braves are the weakest division winner, even if I do like their odds. The Brewers at plus 300. Again, they won't face the Dodgers until the NLCS, if they face them at all. And they have the best matchup. I think they'll have the best matchup among any of the teams in the division series round. So I like them at plus 300 and their opponents, the Braves, at plus 450.
In the AL, the Astros are favored to win the league championship at plus 210 odds. So, Eric, do you agree that they should be the favorites?
I am not with them here, and that's because I don't really think they're much better than the White Sox. I think the White Sox have an incredibly deep lineup. Now that they've gotten Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez back from injuries that cost them significant portions of the year, I think the White Sox have a deep rotation and excellent back of the bullpen. Not even just the back, too, if you start talking about guys like Michael Kopech, who could bridge the gap between starters and those final few innings. And I think a team that has to play a team as good as the White Sox in the first round, I think it's tough for me to have the Astros at plus 210. I think that series is effectively 50-50 in my eyes. So I would like the White Sox much better because they have the better odds out of those two.
All right. What's your take on this one, Matt?
Yeah, we're in very strong alignment here on this segment because I think that the White Sox and Astros are very close. And it's not that I think the Astros will lose. Maybe they're a slightly better team than the White Sox. It's just that they don't deserve to be favored to this extent. Like the Rays are the second favorite at plus 290 for the American League. The Astros are well ahead of them at plus 210. And I don't think either of those teams is really a good bet, but I don't think the Astros should be this far ahead. So like if I had to pick an AL team, the White Sox at plus 300 makes some sense. And then I'd probably want to look to the Yankees or Red Sox, who just have much longer odds. I think if you have a lean on this wild card game, you just pick that team to make a run through the playoffs. Because if the Yankees do win with Garrett Cole on the mound, like they may be the best team in the American League. I think the Red Sox have a case to be the best team in the American League. A lot of their issues throughout the year were injury related. They have Chris Sale back now. So I think that either of those teams, like I would want whoever that is, but obviously they have a chance of losing to the other one in the wild card game before we even get to a full series. But yeah, I think the Astros are overvalued here. It kind of pains me to say it because I think they've been undervalued in the past couple of years, but not this one. I'd rather look towards some of the longer odds.
Finally, let's get your picks for the World Series winner. Again, the Dodgers are favored at plus 390 in this category, but are they your number one choice, Matt?
This is a hard one. Like, I don't think there's a standout team this year. That's honestly my biggest takeaway. Like, if the Dodgers were playing a home series right now instead of a wild card game, I think it would be the Dodgers by a mile. Like, I think they are the best team. I think it's pretty obvious. Not having Max Muncy there hurts, but even without him, they are the best team in baseball. It's just that they have to play this wild card game first, and that just lowers their probability by a decent amount. So it's kind of a weird thing to say, right? Like I think that this team is in a class of their own as far as the best team in the MLB, but I don't think they should be the clear favorites for the World Series. I don't think there should be a clear favorite for the World Series. So I don't really have an answer there. Like I can see the Dodgers getting past the Cardinals pretty easily and then making the run. So like I almost still want to pick them, but I'm not nearly as confident as I would be if they had just won their division.
Eric, plus 390 for the Dodgers. Are they your number one choice?
I think, unsurprisingly, since I didn't love them for the pennant, I'm not going to love them as the number one choice for the World Series. Again, maybe we'll talk again after they've won that wild card game. You just can't call them favorites when they've got about a 40% chance of not even making the division series. I think the best odds I like are the White Sox at plus 700. Again, really tough matchup, I think, against the Astros. I'd probably have it as Dodgers, Astros, and White Sox as probably the top tier, though not significantly ahead of the next few teams. So the White Sox have a tough first matchup, but they're being treated as, I think, significantly worse than the Dodgers and Astros in these odds at plus 700. So I like them. I like the Brewers on the opposite side at plus 750. I think they have the easiest path to the title, given that they faced the Braves in the first round. But I also like the Braves at plus 1,100 because, they're already in the division series. And even though they're the weakest of the 6 division winners, baseball series are just, again, much closer to coin flips than we really think they should be. And at plus 1,100, when other teams are, plus 700 or much lower than that, I think that's not bad at all. I also think the Red Sox at plus 1,600. If you're going to take a wild card team, I think they're clearly the best because I think they're pretty talented and, again, may not even make the division series, but you're getting very, very good payout if they do make it through.
All right, thanks, fellas. That's it for baseball today. Coming up, we're going to talk tonight's Monday night showdown between the Raiders and Chargers. Pierce Dietrich is going to join us for that. But before he does, here's a little something Pierce does for us called the NASCAR Price Check, where he previews today's race at Talladega, which was postponed yesterday due to weather.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Talladega. Whose salary jumped up this week? Justin Haley, $5,600 up to $9,400. Whoa, DraftKings, take it easy. I get it, he's starting in the back. And he won a plate race, but that was because of lightning, and you know what they say. Lightning doesn't strike twice. Eric Almirola, $7,000 up to $9,200. Looks like DraftKings did their homework, or they looked at the stat sheet for 3 seconds. Before the last 2 at Talladega, he had a streak of 8 top 10s. Alex Bowman, $8,300 up to $10,200. I don't understand this price. He's not starting in the back, and he's not particularly a good plate racer. Whose salary dropped this week? Kyle Larson, $11,100 down to $8,400. Plate racing is like Superman on planet Krypton. Kyle Larson has no advantages this weekend at Talladega. Kyle Busch, $10,800 down to $8,200 since 2017. Over those 19 plate races, he has 3 top 10s and an average finish of 22nd. Martin Truex Jr., $9,700 down to $7,600. You think Busch is bad? Over those same 19 races, he has 2 top 10s and an average finish of 23rd. Favorite play of the week, Denny Hamlin, $10,500. He's the best plate racer in NASCAR. He knows when to push, he knows when to bail, and he knows when the time is right to go for it at the end for the win. He has spidey senses at the plate tracks. Joey Logano, $7,900. Team Penske has won the last 2 plate races. They should have won the Daytona 500. Joey Logano should have won the Daytona 500. He's the second best plate racer in NASCAR. All right, guys, check out DK Nation for all your DFS information and needs. If you got NASCAR questions, find me on Twitter at Race for the Prize. I am Pierce Dietrich. Catch me on DK Live.
Promised! It is time to look at DFS prices and the best bets available for tonight's Monday night showdown between the Raiders and Chargers, and we're doing it with this trio. DraftKings contributors Reid, Fowler, Pierce Dietrich, and RotoWire's AJ Scholes. All right, Reid, who is your captain's play for tonight?
Yeah, so much of me, Jesse, wants to just stack all the Raiders, right? We're one of the 2 undefeated teams in the NFL, and I have to take it for what it's worth because it might come crashing down this week. Because Justin Herbert, I think, is the guy. He's the most expensive, and I do think there is leverage off of a guy like Justin Herbert because you look at statistically, Derek Carr is getting all the love, right? The most passing yards, undefeated, looks really good in this Gruden offense. But if you look at Herbert and what he's done against the Raiders in his 2 matchups, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And against this secondary, guys, this secondary is still a liability for the Raiders. And the Chargers pass 70%, or they dial up 70% pass plays so far this season. So give me Justin Herbert. Even though he's the most expensive, I don't think he goes heavily rostered in this one.
Pierce, he's $16,800 in the captain's spot. Do you want to go with the most expensive guy?
No, I'll take his receiver. I'm going to chase the touchdowns in this game. We know that Keenan Allen inside the red zone is one of the most targeted receivers in the NFL. Inside the 10, he's also one of the most targeted receivers. And if we're going for touchdowns, then Keenan Allen is going to be the ticket. You can pair him with Herbert if you can somehow find a way to afford it. The Chargers have gotten better, but they're still not that good. And they really haven't faced an elite wide receiver this year, and they've given up plenty of points to wide receivers. So I'll take the Chargers side and give me Keenan Allen.
All right, AJ, who do you like in your captain spot?
I think Reid is just like defending himself against heartbreak later because I do
edge.
think Derek Carr is the guy to go with. I don't, Pierce makes an intriguing case for Williams, but for my part, I think you have to use one of these two QBs given the yardage they put up. For me, I'll take the slight savings with Carr. Look, his lowest yardage total this season was 382. Like 2 TDs in each of the games. Yes, 100% this is going to be the best defense I think that he's faced all season. But even if they hold him to 100 fewer yards than his lowest total, you're still looking at 282, which would be solid production out of this spot.
All right, let's move on to some value. Pierce, where are you looking for in this game?
Larry Roundtree. Now, you can just go at this as a straight punt, hope you get maybe some receptions and some rushing yards from him. But him scoring touchdowns, not the craziest thing on the board for the Chargers. He's got the 6th best odds to get into the end zone. We've known in the past that Austin Eckler didn't get a lot of goal line carries. He is getting the goal line work this year, but we've got a large sample size that says the Chargers like to give it to other guys inside the goal line. And the Raiders last season gave up the 3rd most rushing touchdown. So there is an opportunity. If he doesn't get in the end zone, you might still be all right because he gives you so much value to stack your lineup with other players. But him getting in the end zone is not the craziest idea on the slate.
AJ, where's the value?
I actually really like, maybe not quite as far down as Pierce went here, but I like Kenyon Drake at the value spot here at 5,400. Not getting the carries as the same level as Peyton Barber here, but he's been targeted more in the pass game, like significantly more than Barber. And he's getting some of those red zone opportunities as well. So I think at 5,400, you save a little bit more. It's not quite a punt play. Because he does have a share of the offense here.
All right, Reid, where are you finding value in this one?
Yeah, I could have sworn Pierce was going to go like tight end 3 or like Alec Ingold, getting a couple of touchdowns and a couple of catches on the goal line. But he's coming in a little bit questionable. So I got to pivot a little bit on my rebuke for Pierce because I think it's a solid play. Like, I think it's Bryan Edwards. I get $5,000 on the Raiders side. Yes, I'm going back to my Raiders here, AJ. I just think he's a guy that, look, he's getting around 15 yards on average per target. He's getting at least two deep balls, deep targets per game, right? A lot of us think, everybody thinks that that's Henry Ruggs. And while it is, and he's getting a lot of love now as sort of a season-long and a DFS guy who's going to break out this year because he's getting more than 4 targets a game now. That's someone that I think there is some leverage on a guy like Bryan Edwards. And again, honestly, maybe this is just a natural hedge against my Raiders here, but the Chargers DST, I mean, we've seen Derek Carr throw some pick 6 worthy balls. We saw it last week. I think the Chargers DST, this can still be a high scoring game. Derek Carr can still score a lot of points, and the DST can as well, getting to Derek Carr and maybe turning a pick 6, because we know that this defense is pretty aggressive.
All right, Los Angeles is a 3.5-point home favorite in this one. AJ, which side of this number do you like?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious from my DFS takes here that I'm on the Raiders tonight in this one, especially when you're getting the points here at plus 3.5. As I said earlier, the Chargers are the best defense the Raiders have faced all season, but nobody's really had a good answer for Derek Carr. He's just is putting up such huge numbers, and I would at minimum expect them to be within a field goal on this game. I think 3.5 is too wide of a spread here. Maybe if it was a little closer, I might go on the Charger side. But right now, looking at it, I actually think I would take the Raiders on the money line at plus 150 to get some really good value for a game that I think is going to be competitive and going to be close.
Reid, this number has moved down to 3 points. I know that you're rolling with your boys in this one.
Yeah, AJ hit it, right? Hit the nail on the head there. At plus 3, I'm going money line at plus 150. I think that's where the value is. If it's 3.5, I like those points because you're getting that half point. But at this point, at 3, you might as well take the money line on the Raiders at plus 150 at plus money. If you take a look at what they've done, and look, the Raiders, how many fans, guys, are there in Los Angeles for the Raiders, right? This has been a LA Raiders team. There's a ton of fans out there. Yes, I'm going a little bit narrative here, Pierce. I know you like to drive down that street every now and then.
It's pretty well. That's true. It's strong.
Yeah, that's right. And like the Raiders are through and through in California, especially in Los Angeles. So I don't necessarily think this is a huge home field advantage with the Chargers because we know the Chargers don't really have home field advantage.
Pierce, Los Angeles, a 3-point home favorite. Which side of this number do you like?
I'll tell you why. If the black hole shows up and there's guys in, pads and spikes hanging out in the end zone, then all right, I'll change my pick. But until then, I'm sticking with the Chargers. I mean, last week the Raiders were 4.5-point favorites against the Dolphins with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, and they couldn't get the job done there. I think the quarterback play, the weapons are there. That's what we expected going into the season, and their defense is developed. Their offensive line is playing better, but they're just not quite there. They still have a couple steps to go. Meanwhile, the Chargers look pretty complete. They're just making mistakes. The Chargers could be almost an undefeated team if they just weren't making these silly, foolish mistakes. I think it's easier for the Chargers to fix those mistakes than it is for the Raiders to develop this quickly. I'll take the Chargers and the points and lay the points.
Okay, so the total for this game is 51. The Chargers' offense hasn't been as high-powered as some may have expected, but they did put up 30 last week, and the Raiders have shown an ability to score. So do you expect a lot of offense in this one, Reid?
I do. Like AJ mentioned, this is a game that's at 51 and within a field goal, right? I agree completely. And I mentioned, and I alluded to it a little bit earlier, that the Chargers are passing at 70% clip. The Raiders are passing at 66%. Like, Peyton Barber is fine. We saw a ton of Peyton Barber in that, last week when the Raiders were, when they had the game kind of sewn up, but I don't think that this Raiders team can keep up with the Chargers if they decide to pound the ball on the ground, right? That's just not the case. And when you have a guy like Henry Ruggs that can stretch the field, and we haven't even mentioned Darren Waller yet, these are guys and players, and Derwin James is fantastic, but these are guys that can stretch the field. I do think that the points are going to be scored here, so I do think it's going to go over. But if I had to absolutely put money on this, I'd probably stay away. But if I had to lean, I'd go over.
Pierce, where are you leaning?
I'll go with the over here. The Raiders 13-3 last year in the over. This year 2-1 the over. And the one time the game didn't go over was against Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh just wasn't playing very well. Ben Roethlisberger had a bad game. Otherwise, that game probably would have went over as well. The Raiders' defense has improved, but they still give up plenty of points. Both these offenses are looking great. The one con would be that when the Chargers following and under being successful, there was something like 9-0 going under in the next game. Let's get a little too deep in the weeds. It's almost like Reid's betting trends article. I just think common sense says two good offenses. We're going to go over.
All right, what do we think? We rolling with the over, AJ?
Yeah, absolutely. And these guys have said pretty much everything that you can here. The Raiders are averaging 30 points per game to start the year through their first three. The Chargers just need to put up a little bit of offense, which we're starting to see. I think that preseason rust is coming off of them, and they're going to get rolling. And yeah, I think we'll see both teams putting up 30, maybe even into the 40s on this one.
Okay, finally, is there a player prop that you like on Monday Night Football, Pierce?
Brian Edwards over 36.5. I've been perfect on my props so far this year. The sportsbook is I don't understand. I think they're missing all these. 36.5 for Brian Edwards. If Derek Carr is going to throw for 280 yards, let's give Darren Waller 80, which is pretty high. Where's the other 200 going to go? At least 36 is going to go to Edwards. He's averaging something like, 70 yards per game? I don't understand this. I know the Chargers have a decent secondary, but 36.5 seems way too low to me.
All right, AJ, player prop that you like.
Well, look, I mentioned that earlier, if the Chargers keep Carr from putting up 100 fewer yards than his season low, that would be 282. That's right at the over or the total for this one at 282.5. So I'm taking that one for sure. And then I actually really like the weekly special on the DK Sportsbook from this game to have Justin Herbert and Derek Carr to combine for going over 649.5 yards at plus 130. I think that's really good value for two quarterbacks that could be slinging it big time in this one.
All right, Reid, where are you going with the player prop that you like?
Yeah, Pierce, that Foster Moreau is going to get those 150 yards that we're all going to be predicting here. No, I do like Justin Herbert. I think he's, I can have my Raiders allegiance with also appreciating what Justin Herbert is doing. This guy is getting into his zone. He looks really comfortable in the pocket. He threw four touchdowns last week. Over 2.5 touchdowns, I think, is definitely in play. The secondary for the Raiders, Mullen, Arnett, Abram, they're not exactly great in coverage, and we've seen them give up some big plays. So over 2.5 passing touchdowns for Herbert.
All right, thanks, guys. One last block to go. Reid is sticking around. He'll be joined by Jeff. They're going to take a look at the Shriners Hospitals for Children Open when the sweat returns. time for the final block of the show. I'm joined by DraftKings contributors Reid Fowler and Jeff Ulrich, our golf gurus, and we're playing a little PGA pin placement. Guys, I'm going to name off some players. I need you to let me know where you think they're going to finish in this week's Shriners Hospitals for Children Open. So let's start with Brooks Koepka. Reid, where do we think Brooks Koepka is going to finish?
22nd place, Jesse. Look, Brooks is someone that I think we're getting back-to-back weeks, right, Jeff, in Vegas. The CJ Cup's going to be playing here. I actually like Brooks, and potentially if he's teeing it up, I don't know what his schedule is, but I would assume that a lot of these guys are playing here to get used to to get acclimated to the environment here and to the altitude. I like him a little bit more next week, but Brooks, we all know that Brooks with these type of tournaments doesn't necessarily get up. I think he's playing the Shriners once. Maybe it was last year, Jeff, and he didn't do that well. So I'm going to say 22nd because I want to besmirch the good name of Brooks, who made amends with our guy Bryson.
All right, Jeff, he's plus 1,600 to win. What do we think?
I'm going to give him a little bit more credit than Reid. He actually has played here 5 times in the past. He's got a runner-up finish from 2016 and a 4th place from 2014. Now, those are a long time ago. But the fact Brooks Koepka is at this event, I think, does say something. He wouldn't be here if he wasn't healthy because it's the fall. And I think he does like this layout a little bit. Obviously, he's going to be thunking drives 400 yards in the thin air. I'm going to say a top 10. I'm going to give him a T8. I think Reid might be onto something. Next week might be better. He gets a little in here, gets used to the altitude. But I think he's going to show up because he wasn't playing that badly before. Played at the Ryder Cup. He should be healthy if he's here. I'm going to give him a top 10.
All right, Jeff, another guy who's plus 1,600, Abraham Answer. What do we think?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit less bullish on Abraham Answer. Again, another guy who's got like a really spotty record here, like 2 top 5s, but also like missed cuts. It's kind of been a case of either the putter shows up for Answer at this event or it's just like it's nothing. So in you look at this, it's a good setup. He's not like the biggest hitter. He doesn't have to be at this course, though, because it's shorter. We just haven't seen Abe Answer for that long. Now you've got guys coming off the Ryder Cup. Guys have already gotten in a couple false starts. I don't really like backing a top player like this when they're coming in cold. It's Abe Answer. He's probably going to make the cut, but I'll give him a T22 for this week.
Reid, he just bumped down to plus 1,800. What do we think?
I actually really like Answer. So Jeff and I are switched on Answer and Brooks right now because I think Answer has a really good shot at winning this thing. We saw last year that he won. He finally got that monkey off his back. He won the WGC St. Jude, and you look at what he did in the playoffs. He played well. And when I take a look at course comps, Jeff, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but this kind of feels like the American Express, maybe not exactly the same, but in La Quinta you have the same type of feel, right? It's a Pete Dye course, not necessarily what we're getting here in terms of course designer, but it has a similar feel to it. And what do we see there? We see guys like Siwoo Kim. We see guys who hit their approach shots really well. And a guy like Abe Answer is someone that's coming in back-to-back in his last 2 tournaments on the PGA Tour, gaining strokes to approach. He loves bent grass greens. I actually have him here with a good chance to win. And so I'll give him a victory here. And at the bottom, maybe a top 5.
All right, Reid, Scotty Sheffler is plus 2,200 to win. Where do you think he finishes?
Yeah, I think he does well because, again, I'm looking at these comp courses and I see the American Express as one. I see the Shriners as a course that you need that second shot approach. And we saw with Scotty Sheffler what he was able to do at the Ryder Cup. He really performed admirably. At plus 2,200, I'd probably go to guys that are a little bit lower. I think we'll get to one in a little bit. But a guy like Scotty Sheffler, right, when he gets a hot putter, and we've seen him on resort type courses. We've seen him at, I think it was TPC Boston a couple of years ago, absolutely go ballistic with his irons and his putting. And that's what you need here. We saw Kevin Na gain 14.2 strokes when he won a few years ago. Scotty Sheffler has that in his bag. And again, looking at potentially a first time winner here, Scotty Sheffler, absolutely. You want to get guys who can play these type of courses well.
All right, where do we think Scotty Sheffler finishes, Jeff?
Yeah, I think this is a player who's got a good shot at a win, too. I mean, look, all these players we're talking about are top players. So if any of them finish way high up, we shouldn't be shocked. Obviously, we're differing a little bit in who we like, but Scheffler is the guy who's played a little bit more. Like Reid said, he's coming off a good playoffs. He's got really good course comps, too. I'll take Scheffler for the win here over Answer simply because I think that momentum off the Ryder Cup and just the fact he's had a little bit more practice probably gives him an edge. But realistically, I do agree. Like both these last two players we've talked about, Abraham Ancer and Scotty Sheffler, set up well. I just like the way Scheffler finished last year, made it to the Tour Championship again. Reid mentioned that the course comps, these easier courses. Even the WGC match play, an easier Pete Dye setup. Scotty Sheffler went nuts that week. So I think this is a very, very good course for him. I'm looking at him to have a really big week, and I'll be a little bit disappointed if he doesn't at least like challenge for the win on Sunday.
All right, Jeff, how about Harris English? He's plus 2,500 now to win.
I mean, just another player we could put in this group. I mean, an elite putter. If he gets hot with his irons on this course, I mean, he won earlier at a relatively similar course. It had Poa greens, and maybe that's what at the Travelers is what I'm referring to when he won there his second win of last season. So it's a similar course, but I think we'll discount him a little bit. Maybe not his preferred putting surface. He does like the Poa greens. So again, I'll say English, because he's just so consistent and he shows up. We'll give him a T20. Played well at the Ryder Cup, showed a lot of moxie there. Just a really solid player and someone who's tended to dominate these resort courses when he's playing well. But I think when you look at everything, we can't give everybody a win here. And I think that Harris English, maybe not his preferred putting surface. I think that guys like Scheffler and Ancer probably get a little bit of edge from that perspective. So I'll bump him down a little bit to a T20.
Reid, where do you think he's going to finish?
Yeah, I got him in the same range. Maybe a little bit less. I'm a little bit less bullish on a guy like Harris English, and especially at his odds right now, right? Like he's someone that I'd rather go to like a Scotty Sheffler, a Will Zalatoris, someone who's a little bit like, look, this guy, like if he won 3 tournaments last year, he would have definitely been player of the year, right? Because from what he did to actually winning 3 events on tour is absolutely amazing. So I'll give him like an 18th place. Yeah, I know Jeff has him at 20. I'll give him an 18th place because like Jeff mentioned, you got to put respect on guys who can putt the ball really well. It's just I like guys a little bit more, which is why I'm bringing him a little bit down.
All right, another guy whose number just changed like when we started this segment. Hideki is sitting at plus 2,800 now, Reid. What do we think?
Yeah, this one I'm having trouble with, Jeff, because like, man, Hideki can absolutely destroy this course. Like he can pick it apart, right? Like, this kind of, it has that feel of a waste management. It kind of has that feel of a course that he can absolutely tear apart. At plus 2,800, I really like Sanjay, who's right there as well. So I'm going to give Hideki a top 25. I'll give him 24th. Like, well, price is right. Give him one less. But like, he's someone, again, we haven't seen him play in a long time. That putter can go cold if we don't see him playing a long time and he's not getting that putter up to snuff in competition. It's just the approach game that I think can keep him in it. So I'll give him a 24th.
Jeff, Reid says 24. What do you say?
Yeah, it's interesting. Hideki's played this event 3 times in the past. Did play here last year and actually gained over 2 strokes putting, which, again, I mean, bentgrass greens tends to be his most preferred surface. At the same time, I'm not going to sit here and trust Hideki Matsuyama's putter to show up. He probably will light it up with his irons, but it probably won't matter because he'll lose too many strokes putting like he normally does. I'm just going to give him a T25. Hasn't played in a while either. So of all the players we've talked about, Hideki is easily the most volatile. He's the one who could seriously challenge for a miscut and then also just come back and challenge for the win. So I think of all the players, he's the most volatile. I'm going to bump and give him the lowest ranking as well at a T25. All elite players we've talked about, but Hideki, that putter, man, I just don't want to trust him.
All right, thanks, guys. That is a show, but the fun doesn't stop. We've got 3 Madden Sims coming your way today, starting at noon with the Bills at the Titans. Then, of course, make sure you tune into the slate at 5 p.m. Brendan Glasheen, Matt Meiselman, our own Jeff Ulrich will be getting you ready for Monday Night Football. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m., so I'll see you then.